If you're in the process of buying a home currently or thinking about buying a home in the near future, you've probably heard about the new buyer broker agreement, also known as a buyer agent contract. Don't worry, it's not that scary. In today's video, we're going to break down everything you need to know about the new buyer broker agreement. Hey guys, Cameron Stewart here with the Homes by Cameron Stewart Real Estate Team powered by eXp Realty. The new buyer broker agreement established in August 17th of 2024 has got a lot of people worried about how to proceed with buying a house in today's day and age. We've got high prices, we've got a competitive market, we've got low inventory, and now on top of it, we've got a new thing to deal with, this new buyer broker agreement. It's not that tough, folks. It changes a little bit about what we do, mostly perspective and strategy. All right. But I think ultimately it's a good thing. My objective opinion is that this is going to provide more transparency to buyers and sellers and allow them to make better, more informed decisions without having to rely as much on the trust of their agent. Okay. You want to get a good agent to represent you when buying a house, but you don't want to rely on them for everything. Okay. You want as much transparency as you can get. So in today's video, we're going to break down everything you need to know about the new buyer broker agreement from the buyer's perspective so you can make better, more informed decisions when purchasing real estate. Let's dive in. All right, so let's start with the basics on why we're even here. We had a National Association of Realtors settlement stemming from a lawsuit from a seller, okay, that claimed that the commissions they paid to the buyer's agent representing the buyer when they sold their house was not transparent to them. And they sued essentially saying that they didn't know that they had to pay the buyer's agent and it was an exorbitant fee. Now, before we go any further, regardless of what your interpretation is of the verdict of this lawsuit, if you have even a handful of sellers nationwide who feel like they've been taken advantage of when selling their homes, that at the very least is an area of opportunity for the real estate industry to respond and make sure that there is more transparency. We will not exist, the real estate industry that is, we would not exist if not for buyers and sellers, okay? If we have buyers and sellers who have animosity towards the real estate industry, that is not good for anyone, okay? So this is an area of opportunity for us right here. So regardless of what your interpretation is of the lawsuit, we have an area of opportunity to do better, and that's what we're going to try and do. So specifically regarding commissions, who's paying commissions, how the commissions are split up in terms of what percentage of the commission is the listing agent getting, what percentage of the commission is the buyer's agent getting, how much is that total commission? Is it a percentage? Is it a flat fee? When do the terms expire? Those are the specifics of the lawsuit, some of the specifics. It goes a lot deeper than that, but when you break it all down, it's really revolving around the commissions that are paid to agents, who's paying them, and how much they are. How does this affect your home search, whether you're looking for a house in Rome, New York, Utica, New York, the greater central New York area, or honestly across the country? Well, simply put, we used to have about a three-step program to finding a house. The average buyer did. Now there's about 5 steps. But what we're really doing is we're adding 2 simple yet very important steps to the home buying process and how we identify a home. And what this really doing is going to help identify an agent and the services that that agent is going to provide you prior to finding the house that you're interested in putting an offer in. Previously, the way it used to work was like this. Number one, you'd search for homes. Number two, the nearest agent to you would take you on a tour of the home and you'd place an offer. And number three, you'd close on a home. What's going to happen now, we're going to add 2 steps to that essentially. Number one, you're going to identify and interview the appropriate buyer's agent for you. Number two, you're going to sign a buyer broker agreement, which is going to clearly provide the services and terms that the agent is going to provide you. And then we're going to get into number three, which is the old number one, which is search for homes. And then number four, place offers. And then number five, close on a home. So we're adding 2 steps broadly to this endeavor, which is find the right agent and sign the buyer broker agreement before finding the right home. So what we're going to need to do is have an established relationship with the buyer's agent before looking to go into a home for a viewing or a showing before we put an offer in on it. Okay, so there's a couple steps we need to take. Number one, we need to identify the agent. Okay, do you have an agent in mind that you're interested in working with? Have you done some research on local agents in your area that you're interested in working with? It's going to be important to reach out to that real estate agent prior to scheduling a tour for the home. Part of this verdict requires a buyer to have a signed buyer broker agreement prior to even entering the home for a traditional showing. That's correct. If a buyer does not have a signed buyer broker agreement with the real estate agent, they cannot tour the home on a private showing. Interesting fact, you can still tour the home in an open house. Open houses must be present to the public. All right, so that is kind of a carve out or a loophole, one might say. So you can go unrepresented as a buyer into any open house that is in the public, advertised to the public. Okay, we do have open houses that are for the MLS only. Sometimes we have broker opens, but any public open house you can attend without a buyer broker agreement. If you're interested in touring the home in a private showing with a realtor, you need to have a buyer broker agreement signed, which is why it's important to understand what agent you're doing business with prior to signing that. So we need to establish a relationship with an agent first, and then we need to sign a buyer broker agreement. Then we go into the next steps, which is identifying the home, looking at the home via a showing, and then putting an offer into the home. So how does this change the aspect from a buyer's perspective? Well, you need to establish a relationship with an agent prior to showing the homes. A lot of times what we used to do is we used to go to Zillow, we used to go to Realtor.com, we used to go to our local MLS, and we used to find 123 Main Street, and then we'd reach out to go see 123 Main Street, and we'd find the nearest realtor that we could to show us the house. Well, you're going to need to sign an agreement with that realtor before you see that house. That's mandatory now. So it's important you understand what that realtor is going to do for you in return, what their services are, and they need to be clearly defined. That is the buyer broker agreement. What we're going to find is more power and transparency in negotiations as a buyer. What do I mean by that? Well, let's think about it from this perspective. For those of you that have bought a home in the past, okay, whether it was 2 years ago or 20 years ago, just think to yourself, before you purchased that house, and still to this day, do you know how much your realtor was compensated? I didn't think so. Most people have absolutely no clue. They have absolutely no clue. What this buyer broker agreement is going to do is it's going to let the buyer know how much their buyer's agent is going to get paid. What does that mean for you in negotiations? Well, it allows you to negotiate more clearly. If you understand how much your agent's going to get paid, or what I mean by that is that maybe you don't have the responsibility to pay your agent. Maybe the buyer broker agreement you signed dictates that your agent, as a buyer's agent, is going to seek their full commission from the seller. It's important to understand all aspects of that buyer broker agreement because it will ultimately allow you to make better, more informed offers and negotiate from a better standpoint. This is going to streamline the process and is going to prevent a lot of confusion. And when this confusion generally comes to fruition is at the closing table. All said and done, you go to show up and sign for the home, and you say to yourself, well, I didn't realize this cost here, and I have this cost here, and I'm responsible for this. Well, the buyer broker agreement is at the very least going to outline the commission portion of that for you, so there's no surprises. This means that choosing the right real estate agent as a buyer's agent is more important now than ever. Although you can exit the buyer broker agreement contracts, there are protections in there for agents to ensure that buyers don't use the agents for their services to show houses but not purchase them. This is a standard clause that we see in contracts and have seen in contracts for years, at least here in New York State, which essentially means that if an agent shows a property to a client and the client ditches that agent and puts an offer in within the next generally 30 or 60 days, that the agent is still due a commission. What that'll do is it'll help give the agent some protections that the buyer is not just using them to show houses, but not ultimately putting offers in through them. Remember, agents do not get paid until homes close. The right agent will help understand your home ownership goals and all the aspects of what you and your family are looking for in the appropriate home for you. And when picking the right agent, hopefully they're going to have a great understanding of that and they're going to continue to work with you, sometimes through not just weeks, but months. And honestly, sometimes we work with clients for more than a year before we find the right home. Okay. So the right agent is going to understand all of your needs, okay, and help you find the right home over time. A great agent is also going to help you understand all of the commission structures surrounding your deal and who's going to be responsible, whether it be the buyer or the seller, for paying the commissions and how much they're going to be. So what does this mean for the Rome market in general? Quite honestly, it doesn't really mean much, okay? A lot of the practices are still the same. It's really just the transparency behind it that is changing, which once again is a good thing. Whether it's from the buyer's perspective or the seller's perspective, the more transparency around, especially the finances surrounding a real estate deal, the better. That's what we want. We want more transparency. Not much is going to change. It's a lot of strategy that's going to change, okay? But at the end of the day, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, sellers were advertising their homes at a price that included the cost of the commissions, tax, title, and fees, as one would say in the car industry, and that really hasn't changed. If the listing agent is going to sell their services at 6%, then likely what's going to happen is the seller is going to list their home at 6% higher than what they want to get to cover the commissions. None of that's really changed. What has changed is there's a lot more transparency, not only with the seller ahead of time as to what they're going to pay, how much, but also with the buyer ahead of time before they even tour the home as to how much their buyer's agent is going to be compensated, and more importantly, who's going to pay for it. So let's recap the key points here. Number one, you'll now see upfront commission structures with your buyer's agent prior to agreeing to have them as your buyer's agent and prior to seeing homes. Number two, transparency is going to help build trust with the agents and is going to help streamline the process and hopefully close homes quicker. Number three, choosing the right agent ahead of time is critical to finding the right home. Number four, you have more power and clarity in your negotiations as a buyer. With these changes, hopefully the home buying process is going to be more empowering and transparent for home buyers like you. So there we go, folks. This video is intended from a buyer's perspective on knowing what we need to know about the buyer broker agreement so we can streamline the process and not get trodden down in the fluff, all right? Please stay tuned because there's going to be several more parts of this video series, not only covering all of this from the seller's perspective, but also some frequently asked questions. We're going to do some myth busting. There's a lot of misinformation around this, okay? If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call directly at 315-351-2765. It's very important you smash the like button and also share this video if you found value in it. I really am looking to provide value for you guys here. I'm really looking to make your guys' lives a lot easier when choosing the right agent and looking for a home in the greater central New York area. So 315-351-2765. This is Cameron Stewart with the Homes by Cameron Stewart Real Estate Team, powered by eXp Realty.